More Americans are investing than ever before. 58% of U.S. households own stocks in 2022, and that's up from nearly 53% in 2019. Pre-COVID, that's according to the Federal Reserve's Survey of Consumer Finances. And investors are seeing big gains this year. The S&P 500 up around 23% as we head now into the holidays. Here to dig into some of the biggest moves in equities this year is Rishi Khanna, CEO of Stocktwits. Rishi, it is great to see you.
Great to see you guys.
Maybe to start, Rishi, just interested, what are your users talking about right now on the platform? What is interesting them? Is it stocks, meme stocks, crypto?
Yeah.
What are the top tickers?
So obviously the resurrection of crypto has been a big thing over the last few weeks or months, So you're seeing that reflected by the conversation around crypto itself, as well as companies like Mara Digital Holdings, right? Marathon Digital Holdings. But also thematically, you see big interest in electric vehicles and all the stocks kind of related to that. Obviously Tesla, the original meme stock, is always a perennial leader, but companies like Mullen Automotive, NIO, Fisker, Rivian, et cetera, right? So thematically, that's an interesting space. AI, right? Like, you can't get away from 2023 without talking about AI as much as we might try, and it'll be interesting to see how that goes forward. And then, the Magnificent Seven, right? They are the leaders. If you look at our kind of top 5, top 10 lists, the Magnificent Seven are there across activity, interest, gaining new followers and stuff. So really, a breadth thematically, as well as kind of like a reflection of the markets as a whole.
Yeah, I was really interested in that Fed data that we quoted that said more than half of people now own stocks in the US, that I think 21% of them own single stocks, or they're direct investing in stocks, which is a record high.
Yeah.
I was really struck by that because those are the people who were then coming on Stocktwits or Yahoo Finance and looking up information. What do you think is propelling that interest?
Yeah, so I do think the foundational catalyst of bringing a lot of people in the markets has been what's happened over the last 3-4 years due to COVID and stuff. But now, I think getting exposure to the markets and understanding following companies, whether it is a personal thematic interest, right? Again, you see themes like cannabis, psychedelics, that world. You see themes like EVs and whatnot. But biotech and drugs are another thing. So I think that personal interest, but also people understanding exposure to single stock names are an opportunity, right? An opportunity to make money and make gains. Hey, if you were in the Qs,
or lose money.
Listen, it goes both ways, right? But would you have rather been in SPY or in NVIDIA this year, right? And NVIDIA is not a small cap company, right? And so the interesting thing that the data shows you, and I don't know that people surface this, but like media and like music and Netflix came out with their report, stocks, since the demise of commissions, right, and commissions and trading. And so I think the stocks and these products move like digital products, essentially. So the distribution is very much a power law. If you look at our data, it is a perfect, clean power law graph where you have the Magnificent Seven and the big guys that are up front, but the long tail of interests in names and stocks reflect the variety of interests of regular everyday investors.
In terms of themes and topics, Rishi, you mentioned AI, EVs, crypto. Were there any that kind of surprised you this year that generating interest?
That surprised me, not so much. I think there is always the interest that you can't kind of predict. EV is something I've been talking about for a couple of years because we see the data and we see a lot of interest fundamentally. But you do see the interest in companies that have catalysts like bankruptcies, but they're big brand names, right? Like Bed Bath & Beyond is an example of that. And so, the spikes of interest in those types of companies, or catalysts for short interest, GameStop, I think, really made people pay attention to things like short interest in the retail community. And so you do see those spikes, which are less predictable. But I think, thematically, EVs have dominated. AI, I see being, I think we'll find out, is it, a fad or for real, in 2024, across all these companies and whatnot. But
I can't stop looking at Mullen when it keeps coming up as the number one.
Right.
It has been a disaster. It's a penny stock. So I hope that the people who were looking it up aren't buy and hold investors in that thing.
Right. So that's a great, and Mullen's been a fascinating ride, right? But yeah, it's become, the questions around management and all those, kind of issues that have surfaced over this last year especially. But it's been 3 years running that it's been a top top two stock 3 years running, makes AMC and GameStop kind of look silly almost in a way, like, which is kind of interesting. But I think the passion, like EV is one of these spaces that is really a cult. And it is, like Elon Musk started this, right? Like Tesla is the ultimate meme stock, cult stock. Fisker has a similar following, right? Mullen has a similar following. Rivian has a similar following. You have Lord, right? And not to say these are good. Like, hey, some of them have real cars,
right.
Some of them don't, right? But it is the deep passion, and some of it is just social media doing social media things. Some of it is people just fundamentally believe hey, the world is wrong about this. They're going to come back, and more times than not, they're wrong, but. Every now and then, people get that lottery ticket right. Biotech's the same way.
Let me ask you, I'm interested, you mentioned Musk.
Yeah.
Is X, I would imagine X is a platform where people were talking stocks, meme stocks, crypto. Is that still true today?
Absolutely, right? They are a much larger platform, right, than us and stuff. And so they absolutely garner that conversation. I think the difference is, when you're a generalist platform like an X or, the Reddits of the world and stuff, you can't necessarily focus on giving the tools and information and data around the context of the conversation, right? So, for us, we have the opportunity to provide context, whether it's in the form of all the, kind of news about the company or the fundamental data or the technical data, but then also, our own data that, because we're focused on markets, right? So sentiment data, activity, right? These are things that you can look at and follow where, at the end of the day, X has to play to a much broader audience, and so they can't be like, hey, I guess Elon can do whatever Elon wants to do, right? Who knows? But
I think he's proven that, Rishi. Yeah.
Clearly, right? I'm sure the shareholders are excited. But I think that's our opportunity advantage. I do believe there are certain spaces where verticalization and the focus on those communities delivers a lot of value to the community, and I think finance is one of those. I think sports is one of those. And obviously we've seen the rise of sports betting, and that's also reflected in interest in companies like DraftKings and whatnot. And obviously you guys at Yahoo have a lot of interest in sports. I think X has to play a different game, and we're fortunate that we're focused, and we've been around for 14 years, and not going anywhere on that.
All right, Rishi, thanks so much for coming in. Appreciate
Thank you guys.
it.
Pleasure.
Thank you, Rishi.
Thanks so much.